soleil, ma c'est pas si gros, c'est comme la fleur est comme grande même.
Oui, ça bloomerait à la
Ouais, ouais, tard, ouais, c'est vrai.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. We have Dave Melanson here. We're so glad to have him. Thank you very much for coming. So he's going to talk to us about everything that's in the wild, what you can eat, what you shouldn't eat. Yeah,
You can eat once.
yeah, you can eat once and not again. Thank you.
Okay, great. When the garden club contacted me, they wanted somebody to talk about foraging. And so I'll give you my take on what foraging means to me. And it can be a different thing to a lot of different people. I look at foraging more as sort of a hobby than a survival thing. When you go, whether you're hunting or fishing in the woods or whatever, when you take a walk through the woods, it's always nice to know what's there. And there are all kinds of things you can nibble on at every season of the year if you know what to look for. To me, it's just for interest, basically. It's not for survival. If I had to survive based on the knowledge I have about the woods, it would probably be a pretty miserable survival. There are a lot of things you can, nibble on, like I say, year round, if you know what you're looking for, but it's more like for interest. And if you know a few plants in the woods, you're never bored. Like walking to my hunting spot, I normally stop 5 or 6 times because of a certain plant that I see or something that I've stopped to pick or whatever. So I look at it as a hobby. Now, a lot of people think that it's hard to identify plants and to know what's good and what isn't and what have you, and they don't really know how to get going on it. And I think the best way is to go out with somebody that knows some of these plants. My grandfather was, from the old school. He had some native friends when he was growing up, and he had an attic in the old house with just a crawl space, like it would have been like the 3rd floor. And in that attic, he had plants hanging upside down the full length of the house. And I remember going up there to get sweet fern for my sister that had a rash. And the smell in that attic, it was just, it was amazing. And it was just different plants hanging upside down, But, like, I knew a few plants growing up because of my father, my oldest sister, and that. I probably knew more than I thought I did. But later on, when I became a teacher, and this was kind of funny because the way I really got into it in a serious way was because of people that wanted a course on identifying plants. So I was administrator for adult courses. This was in the 80s. You couldn't take an equivalency test and to upgrade. You had to take a course. And in my area, I was the one organizing the course. So a group of 5, 6 people, older people, retired, called a meeting with me, and they wanted a plant identification course I asked all kinds of people, and there was nobody in the area that I could find to teach that course. So I met with the group, and I was the only one there with a college degree. I was supposed to be the smart one. And we decided, well, we couldn't find a teacher. We were going to form a study group, a plant study group. And of course, all of these people, grade school educated people, not a plant on the face of the earth they didn't know. One had eaten 40 kinds of edible mushrooms. They were looking up to me. I had a college degree. I was the smart one. Well, I'll never forget this. Azelle DeVoe, she worked at the cotton mill all her life. The way we'd work our group, there was no head to the group. We were just all on the same level, and we'd meet in our homes. We'd bring every plant that we did not know. In my case, it was every plant. We'd put a plastic sheet on the living room floor, throw the plants in the middle, sit around it with our field guys, and search out the names and the uses. And I'll never forget Azelle DeVoe, the one I'm talking about. It was probably like the 7th or 8th meeting we had like that, and it was great. I was learning all kinds of stuff. And I remember bringing this plant there and asking Azelle what it was. And she said, "Dave, that's the 5th time you brought that plant here. Pay attention." And so she gave me a lesson. She gave me a lesson on basic ways to identify plants. And bit by bit, it sank in. And I got to be able to use plant identification keys. I can actually use the Flora of Nova Scotia now, which is the Bible for plants. Yes, every plant in the province. And it's a double volume book with nothing in color. But what Azelle sort of taught me over time was, you know, things like index ratios. You look at a leaf, okay, right off the bat. The one thing about this leaf, this is a beech leaf, it's twice as long as it's wide. I should remember that about beech leaves. It's toothed, okay? Single-toothed, because some are double-toothed. And there's a tooth at the end of each vein. That's unique, you know? So, you know, little things to look for when you identify a plant. And it comes with practice. The more you do it, then you get in the woods. And I remember after 4 or 5 years of that botany club, getting upset to no end. If I found a flowering plant in the woods and I didn't know what it was, and I'd bring it home and I'd do my best to key it out, and sometimes it would take me 3 or 4 days. Because you get into it and you just want to know more, you know. But Azelle, she, like I was saying, she was an expert on mushrooms. And I remember one time walking in her house, I could smell the mushrooms frying on her stove. There was a bucket by her back door full of this Lecterius theogalis. It was a mushroom that when you break the flesh, it produces milk. Oh, the white milk changes to yellow. And I had keyed that one out, actually. And it was listed in my book as poisonous, as suspect. You shouldn't really eat it. When I walked in her kitchen, she had a frying pan full, frying away. They said, Azelle, I said, is that Lecterius theogalis? Yeah. I said, I teed them out, and they're supposed to be poisonous. She said, Dave, strawberries are poisonous to some people. She said, sit down, have a plate. No, I had a plate. No, so, you know, basically that's how I started. I got a botany group going at the high school with my students that went on for 3 years. I actually put 4 of them back together when they were in university. I was able to secure a $16,000 grant, and we put together a plant collection, pressed plant collection on plexiglass. They worked the whole summer, all 4 of them on that. Probably close to 200 plants with all their uses depicted with symbols and stuff. When I retired from the high school 3 or 4 years ago, the whole thing was brought to the landfill. I wouldn't be speaking to you now if I had that. I would have the thing all over the place. But it's not something that we had put a lot of time on that, and it was well done. But in any case, when it comes to foraging, the best thing is to work together, get a group together, and not to be afraid to appear stupid if you don't learn as quickly as as some other people. It's an interest level. If the more interested you are in it, probably the easier you're going to find it. But even now, there are things that I come to and that I forget. But I'm just going to go over a few, maybe 7 or 8 plants that I just looked around and saw what I could bring. And I know at this time of year, before things start to grow, you can have the tubers, the roots. So I've got 3 of those. It's also a good time for the leaves to come out. This is the same thing, the beech tree branch here. Those are the leaf buds here. In 3-4 weeks from now, those are going to burst out. They'll be looking like that, but they'll be fresh and very tender, and you can just pick them right off the tree and eat them just like lettuce. And they are very good, very tender. When they uncurl like that, so, and these are these buds here, and it won't take long from here on. In another 3 or 4 weeks, they're going to start. And when that dry sheet falls off, and they start to uncurl, and they get to be even that size, boy, you can cook them if you want, but you can eat them just like that. And nothing around here produces more leaves than beech trees. They are infected, so you have a lot of scraggly young growth with tons of leaves, So, but in any case, you can eat a tree, believe it or not. And I'm going to go to another one here. When we were young, we used to eat these all the time. These are the fresh buds of spruce. And it's not woody, it's soft, it's herbaceous. So you can take those and just eat them just like that. Okay? Now what we used to do, we used to just strip the needles, they're soft, and just eat the stem. And what I do with them, this is from last year, I just strip them, throw them in a syrup, dry them, and you end up with candied spruce buds. They're just like candy. When you taste them, all you taste is the sugar initially. Towards the end, you're going to taste the spruce, but it won't be like turpentine. It'll be very light, and it'll be pleasant. If you want to try one, go ahead. At the end, you're going to taste the spruce. And high in vitamin C. Oh, what I do, and we did this in one of the videos for the Métis group last year. When I make tea, some wild tea, I throw that in there for my sugar instead of honey. And you have a bit of the spruce flavor with there as well. You know? So, but this is a book that I got last year, and it shows picking, but some of these are this long on some of the spruce trees. There you can strip them. He's just picking the fresh, no. But we used to eat that when we were kids all over, and nowadays kids would probably, you know. And he's doing the same thing here. This is a pot of syrup, right? That he's soaking them in, and you know, but no. So you can actually eat a tree, you know. Now, this is one that, again, when I was growing up, it's pretty common now. This was the medicine we used for any ailment in the mouth, cold sores, canker sores. This is gold thread. That's the plant. I dug that out yesterday. And these are the roots. Now, I washed these. You can take one of these and just chew it, just so you get the flavor out of it. It'll be the god-awfulest thing you ever tasted. Because it's so bitter. This is an antibacterial agent. What you're going to taste is an alkaloid, and it's called berberine. And it is deadly for bacteria. So if you've got an infection in your mouth, I guarantee you that canker sore will be gone the next day. So pass this around, get that taste. And don't worry, that taste will be gone in 3 or 4 days. In the Acadian families, this was common, gold thread. Everybody knew about gold thread. I know around home it was just common. They knew if you had any sore in the mouth or whatever, this is what you made it. And you can make a tea and just gargle with the tea. But we used to do it like this. My mom would just give us the roots to chew on, you know, and not that bad actually.
Or does it grow all year long?
Huh?
Ça pousse toute l'année?
Yeah, you can gather these year round, because this is at the end of the summer and look, end of the winter season and look. That's the plant. It looks like a shamrock, 3-leaf shamrock, sort of dark green, and you can see the gold thread. I saw a ledger from a country store, I think from Port Maitland, that an old lady had shown me years ago. At the turn of the century, students would buy their books with money they made, selling those by the pound. That's how they would buy their school books. I saw an actual ledger with gold thread, how much they had gathered. There's still a market for it because they can't duplicate that. You know, 40% of our drugs are plant-based. You know, and they either plant-based or synthesize copying compounds from plants, you know. So the natives knew what they were doing, you know. It's pretty well all over. Mixed wood, but mostly hardwood stands, you'll see it. Yeah, it's very common, you know. And, you know, if you don't know, if you're not sure, dig. If there's no gold thread, that you know it's not the one. You know? Now, this This is getting close to the end of the season for tubers because as you can see, they're starting to grow. These are Jerusalem artichokes, the tupin. The plant itself, the yellow flower you see there, it's a sunflower, okay? It grows this high with a sunflower-like, it's in the family of the sunflowers, that yellow thing, so it grows this high. You can't kill it. If you put this in the ground, I guarantee you'll be infested with it for the rest of your life. But there's one thing you should know about Jerusalem artichoke. You can't digest it. And that's why it's good for you. You don't have a digestive enzyme to digest this tuber. So what happens? Well, if you're diabetic, you can eat all you want. The carbohydrate isn't changed to sugar. So you can fill up with this, and it has no effect on your blood sugar at all. Okay? But that doesn't mean that it's not good for you. Because when it gets to your gut, there's bacteria there that just love this. It's a prebiotic. So it is digested in your intestines by your gut bacteria. They digest it for you. It might produce a little bit of gas, but that's okay. In the process, they'll release, all the minerals from this, and you'll get the benefit from the carbohydrate without having your blood sugar change at all. So it's that, I think the carbohydrate is called inulin, and it's not digestible by your body, it's digested by your gut bacteria. So it's, I love it. It has the consistency of water chestnut. And it's good cooked or raw. I like it, I think I probably like it better raw than cooked, actually, because it's a lot like water chestnut, And that amount won't give you that much gas. If you were to eat 4 or 5 tubers, then just to go over that. So c'est des tupins en français. And it tends to a lot of good things from Jerusalem artichoke. It'll tend to lower your blood pressure. The prebiotic bacteria will release potassium from it, and it releases iron. It's very high in protein, has 4 different amino acids in it, which are the building blocks of proteins. So, talk about this. Now, this is a plant. I've got the tubers here that you have to be really careful when you harvest, because its companion is poison ivy. And the leaves look an awful lot like poison ivy. So when you dig it, if you're not, I'm not allergic to poison ivy, it doesn't bother me, but if you think you are, you've got to be really careful with it. It grows where poison ivy grows, along riverbanks, lake shores, places like that. It's a vine-like thing. It has the most beautiful cluster of flowers in the summertime that you'll ever want to see, with the sweetest smell. You don't have to go looking for it if there's any around in the middle of the summer, because it has the sweetest smell of any flower that you can find. And it belongs to the pea family, as you can tell. And the flowers look like sweet peas, great big clusters of maroon color, brilliant, really pretty. And when you dig up at the bottom of the stem, dig it up, you're going to find these tubers. And I love the French name for these. En français, c'est des racines en chapelet. And you can have, if you've got good soil, you could have 5, 10, up to 40 have been found like this all in a row. You know? And in good soil, they can grow to the size of a grapefruit. Wow. Now, they're starchy. They taste a little bit like halfway between a potato and a turnip. Okay? You can't eat them raw. They've got to be cooked. They're not that good raw. The texture is not good, but when they're cooked, they're okay. When the Pilgrims first settled in New England, they would not have survived if the natives hadn't fed them this. This was like in the 1600 or whatever. By the time they had a settlement done, they put a law in place preventing the natives from gathering these because they wanted it for themselves. Now, this could have been the potato of North America. The only reason it didn't come to that is because it takes a 2 or 3 year cycle before it brings a crop. It was brought to France, England. They tried to cultivate it. They had some success. But by that time, the potato was way faster to end up with, you know, the food that you wanted. So wherever you find poison ivy along a brook or whatever, you might think that it's just poison ivy, but this thing is intertwined and the leaves look like it. So a lot of cases where you find it, you know, and it's typical places where poison ivy grows. And it's, you know, it's not as good as the Jerusalem artichoke. It's a little bit more starchy, but it's a food.
What's it called in English?
Indian groundnut. Now, I don't know what it is in French, but Indian groundnut. That's what they called it. And in French, it's chapelet, the racine en chapelet, you know, which means a rosary. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this. The pussy willow. This, I just before coming, I cut this. There's one 5 feet from my house. So the reason I wanted to bring this is because willows have the inner bark of the willows have a compound that's very similar to aspirin. They have salicin or salicylic acid. And it's been used as aspirin through the ages as a painkiller. And I was just looking up stuff on it this afternoon, and I found in the New England area, there were natives. When a baby was born, they would strip the bark, crush it, make sort of a poultice out of it, and they'd put it on the navel of the newborn baby as an analgesic probably, and it's also astringent to dry up the blood so that it would, heal faster. But it's known as a painkiller. It's basically was used as aspirin, the inner bark of the, and of course, it's been used for basket making, and it's so pliable and easy to work with. But as a painkiller and astringent, it dries up. It's been used for that for a long time. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time on. This is rose hip tea, made from the Rosa rugosa from Cape St. Mary. And I just want to talk a little bit about this because rose hips, as you probably know, has about 40 times the vitamin C that oranges have, very high in vitamin C. The Rosa rugosa that grows along the shore, they look like cherry tomatoes. They are so good when they're ripe. You have to be careful. I always go and I chew up the outside of the pulp. The inside has needle-like fibers that it won't kill you, but it'll interfere with your digestive system quite severely. So one botanist a long time ago seen me eat it like this, and he almost had a fit because he thought I was eating the whole thing. Now, if you look carefully at the pulp, you see these little fibers, and they can be quite irritating to your mouth and to your digestive system. So when I do that, I make sure I just skim off the pulp, the skin and the pulp from the outside. And that's all you do for drying. Now, Azel Devo, the same mushroom collector I was talking to you about, she'd make all kinds of teas, and rosehip was one of her favorite. And she taught me then, and the same thing that you find in books now, when you dry herbs, you do not want the sun to hit them. So out of the sun, you want air, and it's okay to have heat, to have, a good temperature, but out of the sun. Where Azel used to dry all her herbs, it was on a front porch. It was surrounded by windows, but she made sure that it was warm, but she made sure to put these where the sun wouldn't hit them. So if you have a dryer, it shouldn't be above 90 degrees when you dry herbs. You can, if I can show you, you can't see much of a difference. This is sweet fern tea. And if I look at it, I can see some green there. This was out all winter, and it's all brown. So when you dry at a low temperature, you take the moisture out, but it should still be green. It shouldn't turn brown and burnt looking or whatever. So that's sort of a key. I'm sure that my sweet fern tea here would be much better than this one. Just like the beech tree that I was showing you, there are there's all kinds of shrubs that grow along riverbanks and brooks. And I've done a lot of canoeing in my life. Things like sweet gale and leatherleaf and Labrador tea. And all of these have leaf buds. They look like the ass end of a hornet. And they are nutty and they're good. When you stop along the brook shore, the sweet gale is one of the best. They look exactly like the wavy, pointy back end of a hornet, and they're so good. So leatherleaf is another one. These are all shrubs that grow in the riparian zone of lakes and brook, but that's there all winter. So there's always something that you can eat. Now, I think we're at the end of our presentation. That long enough?